Hello, Michael.
Oh, that's not the normal beginning.
Oh yeah, sorry. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Gooners, the Gooners podcast. I still want to say the other thing every time.
It's been how long? Like 4 months since I was over at your house and we both decided to change the name of the podcast?
Yes.
And you
yes.
cannot get it straight. Well,
I cannot.
dude,
Not the only thing I can't get straight. What?
Happy birthday, belatedly. Your birthday
Thank
was
you.
yesterday. You look a shitload older.
I have this weird taste of pineapple in my mouth.
Yeah, I was gonna. Let's bring that up in a little bit. This week was the worst of times. It was the best of times. The roller coaster season continues, but I'm enjoying the ride. So, did you spend the day yesterday doing anything good, or there was a game on, wasn't there?
There was a game. I watched. I got to watch. I just relaxed, man. You know how it is once you get older.
When you get old, like me. Well, before we invite or introduce our guest, I want to give a shout out to my brother from another mother, Kenny Ken, my birthday brother, who has a birthday tomorrow.
Oh.
I mean, we're basically twins. We're handsome AF. We're in great shape, very strong. We look exactly alike. So, happy birthday, KK! And we are very pleased today to invite on and invite back our special guest, a friend of the podcast, who was on with us about a year and a half or so ago. Gav, I look back at the show notes from your last appearance, and it says that we discussed games against Cologne and Chelsea, as well as Andy's then 5-month-old son's crotch and multiple orgasms. I don't really have a first-hand memory of this, but if that's what the show notes said, then that's what we talked about. So I'd say we've come a long way since then, but we talked about the same things last week. So we welcome back a fifth-generation Gooner, proprietor of the shewar.com website, which contains a blog, a world-famous Arsenal shop full of goodies. He runs the arsenalshirts.com, which he should be naming www.arsenalshirtsmikecan'tfitinto.com. He can occasionally be heard on Burkamp Wonderland, and if I let him talk, he might be able to be heard on this podcast. Gav, thanks for joining us.
No, I appreciate the invite, lads. Like I say, I'm glad we're talking, hopefully on a happy note, even though we've got to go over the shitstorm that happened last week. But like I say, great night last night. Do you know what I mean? Great game for us. So
absolutely, it's always
we have a happy chat.
Always nice to have a happy chat. This could have been really depressing if not for yesterday. But now, Andy, we don't know Gav's last name, so we're just going to go with Gav Lichtensteiner Bergsteinowitz, right? I mean, we're going to assume that's right.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Sorry, I'm talking to Becca in the chat room.
Well, I'd be distracted by that too, I suppose. Creep factor.
I can't see the back end of the chat room. Apparently, there's some weird fellow who likes fruit on with melted cheese on bread or something. I don't know.
He's the weirdest, man. He is the weirdest. He's a good guy in every way other than that awful, terrible serial killer kind of element to him. But serial killer. And getting to that, about 7 months ago, we had David Ziegler on the podcast, and it just happened to be the week that you, Gav, submitted your one and only user question to this podcast that changed our entire lives forever. He asked, would you rather eat fruit on a pizza or cheese on a doner kebab? And, David, who was wearing a luchador mask for apparently no reason because I screwed up the video and no one other than my face appeared on the entire podcast, which is horrible enough as it is. But Gav has a bone to pick with you, probably more so than you do, Andy, if that's to be believed.
It can't be believed, but I want to believe it. So, Gav, take it away.
I just don't. I'm sorry. I just don't understand it. I just don't. I mean, you've got a pizza. Pizza is a savoury dish. It's a savoury dish. So you have a nice bit of bread. You have a nice bit of tomatoes and a bit of onions, and then some pepperoni. I like a bit of jalapeno peppers or jalapeno, whatever you want to pronounce it.
Yellow penis peppers. I'm not familiar with that.
A bit of pepperoni and all that. What you don't have on a fucking pizza is fruit and fish. Right? Go and have fish and chips. No.
If
you want pineapple, wait till you've finished your pizza. Put the pineapple in a separate plate. Bit of ice cream, couple of chocolate sprinkles.
Yeah.
You're away.
It's not anti-pineapple, Gav. It's anti-pineapple on pizza. And I try to discuss that. He forced a bite of pineapple pizza into my mouth in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago. It is. Oh. He also forced other things into my mouth, but the pizza was the most disgusting one of them.
So Mike, I'll share with you the care package that.
Yes, I was going to ask you. You did get a birthday present.
So I get a package in the mail, and it's to Andy Pineapple Rhodes, and I instantly thought this was coming from Mike. And I open it, and it's a pineapple roll of duct tape. It's a pineapple plant, which I need to bring into my office at work. And then I get a second package, which is a 2-pound bag of dried pineapple, which even pineapple by itself to me is absolutely disgusting. And according to David, it is essentially candy.
Oh, dried pineapple is actually fantastic.
And so I haven't tried it yet. I know my wife loves it, so it's gonna get eaten. But I do need to try it. But that being said, Mike, he says it's like candy. Would you put M&Ms on your pizza? No, because it doesn't belong on pizza. As Gav has just stated, the appropriate toppings for pizza.
I'll tell you, I would be 10 times more likely to put M&Ms on a pizza tonight than I would a pineapple. But anyway, yes, David points out there's
no, don't start all that.
I'm not saying I want to do that. I'm just saying
you want to put chocolate on a pizza now.
Do you know what 10 times nothing is, Gav? It's still nothing. So if I'm 10 times more likely to want to do that than pineapple, it means I don't want to do that. So don't worry. You're not gonna have to disown me.
According to Ziegler, there's more coming. The mail campaign isn't done.
You probably should consider moving at this point, and make sure you water that pineapple fruit or that pineapple plant.
I did text Mike Gavin. I said, "Hey, thanks for the pineapple," and he said that wasn't from me. I may have shared your address with someone.
I can't be responsible. I can't be responsible for that. So, Gav, before we talk about the something even more disgusting than pineapple on pizza, which is the Rennes game. You've always been super generous with your retweets of things that we put out there. I appreciate it. And you were a huge help with our Gooners versus Cancer campaign, which is going to get geared up and running closer to the end of the season. And we also had your help last year with our second place finish at the Football Blogging Awards, which is also known as the Ego Trip Award for people who already have big egos. So anyway, after finishing second place last year, we discovered there's an international podcast or an international content creator award. So you have probably seen me ruthlessly tweeting and Facebooking and DMing and all that about that. But we're not going for best podcast because with Same Old Arsenal, the Gooner Cock TV, and Andy's favorite Arsenal Review USA, I mean, they're all in the mix. We decided we'd let somebody else have the glory this year. You're very welcome. Mm-hmm. But the international one we are running for, and it looks like our biggest competition is going to come from a Chelsea podcast from America, an MLS podcast from the UK, some clock something or other that I've heard of, and a few others. So we need your help. Nominations. Now, I've been told that this is actually legible. To me, it looks completely reversed, like I'm showing in a mirror. But all you got to do to vote for us is go to votegooners.us, or you can go to the Football Blogging Awards.co.uk and enter at the Gooners Pod in the best international content. So that's for nominations. If we get nominated, the real vote will happen after that, and then we'll finish second again.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. We're not saying that we're the best international creators. We just want to win the award. So anyway, big shout out to everybody in the chat. We've got some names in here that haven't been in here before. We got Jeff.
I can't see the chat.
And I know you're looking for a way in. I'm not sure that I could do that without taking 10 minutes out of the podcast. So, but we'll relay any important messages. We did put the pressure on last year with our second place finish. We're good at putting the pressure on. Jeffrey Werner's in the chat. The lovely Becca Rhodes is in the chat. Akash Guha. We've got some of the normal names. We got Jonas in here. We've got, who else is in here? We got Carrie McCollum. and I can't scroll back any further. So thanks for joining us in the chat. Let's take a few minutes and talk about this disaster last Thursday. I mean, look, the fuck do you want from us? We're going to try to spend most of our time focusing on the positive. We're going to ignore this piece of shit game other than just a handful of things.
We scored a goal.
We did score a goal. We scored the first goal, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Did we?
Yeah.
I put that game out of my head. Yeah. Socrates red card. Sloppy and naive from him, or downright con job from the attacker Sar and an overzealous referee Gav. Was that harsh or was that dumb?
I'll be honest with you. I think it was very, very much a mixture of both. It was very much a mixture of the referee being a little bit overzealous, and it was very much a mixture of him when he realised the referee was being a bit overzealous. That really there was no need. Do you know what I mean? Once he'd been booked, he really should have just laid off and not given the referee an excuse to come out with a second card, because that's what he did. He gave the ref every reason in the world to book him, and the ref took it. So unfortunately, in European games, not as much these days. But like I say, when you go back 10, 20 years, you'd get a dodgy Italian ref who would literally book somebody just for looking at somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's a lot better these days, but even so, when you're in Europe and you see a ref that's card happy, once you've got your first yellow, you're under his radar then, so you've really got to lay it off. And he's old enough and mature enough to have known that. So, yeah, I think the ref was a little bit over the top, but as a professional, especially as a senior pro, as he is at the club at the moment, he really should have held back a little bit. There was really no need for it. Do you know what I mean?
He gave him what he needed to screw us over, pretty much. I
think.
Basically,
yeah. I mean, was it 2 yellows? No, it wasn't. But you know, he just there was no need for him really to go in again. Do you know what I mean?
A rare moment, a rare lack of composure from the man too. I mean, he's usually our most composed decision maker.
He's an absolute lunatic. Let's face facts. He's a lunatic. And he likes hurting people. He likes kicking people. And he likes defending, right? But there's a time for it, and he just got the timing a bit wrong, really.
Well, and a good referee is going to tell you as well, hey, you got one more. So a good referee is going to tell you, hey, the next one is a yellow. And then anything after that, you're just playing with fire. Yeah,
I mean, you just got the sense that he thought he might have had that latitude to at least get in the way. I mean, and Sar, the Rennes player, I mean, he goes down about 5 minutes after the actual contact occurs, so that didn't help. But I did forget the Iwobi goal because I didn't see the Iwobi goal. I missed the first 5 minutes of the game talking to a friend of mine, and by that point it was already 1-0. So I pretty much missed all the good parts of the game. Andy, with Leno in goal instead of Cech, do we win 1-0, or do we not concede any of those goals?
No, to be fair to Cech,
Cech had a great game. He was fine.
Cech kept it from being 7-1.
No, I was kidding about that, but
yeah.
But Gav, all the goaltending questions go to Andy because he was and is a goaltender. Speaking of
goalkeeper,
keeper, yeah,
keeper.
All right. Do you think that the online smashing that Guendouzi took after the game, and I was surprised by it. I saw it specifically because of the third goal. Now look, I mean, on that goal, he was at fault. He was just jogging back. Every time he seems to make a mistake or lose the ball, he's 19. It's going to happen. He seems to hustle and get his ass back and at least try to challenge to make up for it. But in this case, it wasn't so much a mistake as it was just not recognizing the situation and tracking back where he should have. So, I mean, he didn't cover himself in glory there, that's for sure. But, I mean, the abuse he took, is there a disconnect? Is this a trend with him, or was this just like a single moment of madness and, you know, one where he switched off, Andy?
I'm seeing a trend with Guendouzi on big mistakes or lack of awareness on the pitch where he needs to be during goals. And so I think the abuse, I never think the abuse is warranted, but it's something that keeps being highlighted.
Is it worthy of criticism, or was it like, give him a break? He makes one mistake.
There's a big difference between criticism and abuse, right?
Yeah.
If you look at it tactically and you say, "Hey, you're out of position," and then to go a step further and like berate the guy, especially being a kid, essentially, it's tough. Because you can see how much he loves this club and how he celebrates. Like even I'm sure we'll talk about it at Man United, where he laid down during the penalties so the supporters didn't miss it. Like there's just those little things about the kid that you love. But unfortunately, on the day, he was the best option for us, and there was a mistake, and it happened. But he's not the only one at fault. There were a lot of players at fault on all three of those goals. So I'm sorry.
On that last one, not only were there players at fault individually, but there was just a mindset of how you let something like that happen when you know that 2-1 is probably a little easier to climb back at home than a 3-1 is. I just don't know how you give up that third goal in that area, but can you pin that on one person or two people, or like Andy said, is it just kind of a systematic breakdown?
I think really it's I said this to a couple of friends earlier, actually. It's almost like a throwback to the previous manager, where it's a complete team breakdown. The fact that we've got a throw-in near their corner flag, and we've got our left back taking the throw-in, which we lost, and then the ball's gone completely through the whole team, and it was a team goal, and it was a stupid goal, because if we'd lost 2-1, and we've only got to score one goal on the home leg, and there's like a minute or so to go, it was just a complete abortion of a play.
Yeah.
And my issue with that really is it really does delve back to the soft underbelly and the fact that we had possibly too many players on the pitch who are not really tactically aware and tactically thinking and looking at the clock, etc. Really, at that point, when it's 2-1 down, there's a minute to go. The last thing you want to do is to let the third in.
Sometimes you need to know how to lose. lose the right way.
Like I say, especially, the way with. If it's a group game and you're losing 2-1, then hell for leather.
Yeah.
Try and get the equaliser. If you can't and you lose 3-1, there's no real fucking problems there. But when you're going to the later stages, you don't really want to concede another goal. A 2-1 away defeat in the first leg isn't really a bad result, because you've got the away goal. So it's almost as odd as this sounds. A 2-1 away defeat is almost the same as getting a draw.
Yeah, because you got to win at home anyway.
Because you've got to win at home anyway.
Yeah.
But when you get down to the 3-1, then you've got to win at home 2-0, and when you're pushing for the 2 goals, you're more likely to concede than when you're only pushing for the 1 goal. So it was really just complete naive, and that was the thing that upset me the most about that Rennes game was that third goal, because it was just completely unnecessary.
Yeah,
and you can blame half a dozen players. You can blame Guendouzi, you can blame Monreal, you can blame Cech. You can probably, but the fact is, it was the whole team. It was just a complete bollock.
Yeah, it was, and now we've got to, like you said, either win 2-0, 3-1, and take it, and pull it out in added time or in the penalties, or just win by 3 clear goals to advance to the quarterfinal. Yeah. Not the easiest thing to do when the other team knows that and can set up that way, but at least it's at home. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, where Rennes actually gained my respect really is their wingers are very, very quick.
Mm-hmm.
Their final ball isn't always the best. Like I say, but they were absolutely wodgering us down the wing.
Yeah, they took advantage of space that we created better than a lot of Premier League teams that I've seen play against us.
Like I say, I thought their wingers that were, like I say, that they both compare. sorry, I was not fucking made myself laugh before I even said it there. They both reminded me of Walcott.
Yeah, of course.
Where he's got all the pace, but he's got the shit final ball. That's what they reminded me of. But like I say, final ball right, and they're playing on the break. They've got the pace to really, really scare us.
Well, hopefully, we'll be able to shut them down on Thursday. But even if we get knocked out of the Europa League, I'm not saying that I think that'll happen. Even if we stumble out of the top four, Arsenal will still automatically next season win the Premier League and the FA Cup double. And you know why? I'll give you one guess, Andy. MONCHI. It's because of MONCHI. All right, everything is going to be better after the season because of.
I heard he went to Barcelona.
Yeah, you tried to tell me that. I'm like, no, I already know that's not true. So fuck off. All right, so that was Stad. That's about as much time as I care to spend on Stad. Let's talk about brighter days. Because speaking of having to win 2-0 and winning 2-0, we won 2-0 yesterday, didn't we?
We did, Mike. We did.
You know, it was in the house, and by the house, I mean the Emirates yesterday. Not only, well, I had two people. One is my buddy Matt from Virginia, but you know who else was in the house? A certain Joshua Reginald Kroenke IV.
Oh,
Was in the house. Did you know that? Did he fly past you as he left Denver?
No, I didn't know that he was leaving our beautiful city here. So
He did, and he went to the game and he spoke to a fan group prior to the game, talked about his plan. So you're not going to overanalyze that, but it looks like he's staying for Thursday, and he might be making a little bit more of a public show of himself. So that would be good. The game. The lineup, interesting lineup. We always talk about the lineup with Torreira suspended, made some tactical changes. We had the healthy players to play a traditional back four, but he chose not to. Mustafi sits on the bench. Iwobi's on the bench. Guendouzi back to the bench, which deprived me of the hugging and the knee sliding, which was, a disappointment to me. But it's like Emery looked at who'd been struggling lately and decided to rotate them out against Manchester United. And, imagine that. Isn't that lovely? Ozil, Rambo start together for the first time. Mainsley gets a chance at right wing. I mean, it was an interesting setup, Captain, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the setup and I thought, yeah, he's going for it. He's going all out attack. And I thought to myself, what would I do? And I thought, yeah, I would do that as well. I mean, all right, Ramsey was under instruction to lay a bit deeper than he normally does, which is a fair one. So I think really the choice was between Ramsey and Guendouzi for that role. He had to pay the top two. He had to start Ozil. And the more I see of Emery and the more I see of how he starts teams and lays them out, is the more I like him. Because at the beginning of the season, you saw a lot of times where he would start off with a 4-4-2 or 4-2-1-3 or whatever he started. And then half time, he would make two substitutions. And then we'd go on and win the game in the second half. Now he's seen every single team once. He knows how to play against them. I mean, the example for that is the team and the layout that we started against Tottenham recently in the draw was the team that started the second half and come back from a goal down against them on the home game. So Emery's obviously learning how to play against certain teams and what formation works. And he's had a couple of looks at Man United this year. At theirs.
Had three now.
Drew. Yeah, there's where we drew. At ours in the cup where we lost. And I think he got the tactics absolutely spot on. Do you know what I mean? I think he got it absolutely spot on, playing through at the back and try and push their midfield wideman. And in the hole it worked. Like I say, it was a very, very attacking lineup, even though, like I say, Ramsey was a little bit deeper than where you would normally find him. But, and we got it right. And like I say, the proof's in the pudding, mate. We scored 2. They scored fuck all.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's easy to say, you got the tactics right with hindsight being 2020. But, I did comment prior to the game, just the way our midfield was with no advantage of having Torreira, no El Neni in the setup, which we haven't seen him for a long time. But I mean, it kind of had all the markings of a 5-4 kind of a game, which makes it all the more pleasurable that we did end up getting that clean sheet. Ironically, without Mustafi in. If Mustafi was in, according to his comments, or as some people would like to interpret them, he would have been glad to give up a goal in the last couple of minutes because clean sheets don't matter. But Andy, the pressing early on was impressive to me. I mean, if you're fit enough and you have the right players, the high pressing early on, to me, like I put it into a language that you like, which is boxing. It's like jabs and body shots in boxing. I mean, you're never going to knock a person out. It kind of seems like wasted energy, but it has a cumulative effect that ultimately leads to defenders doubting themselves with the ball at their feet and making turnovers. I mean, is that kind of does that move us out of the bottom three of tactical commentators on football, or
no? We're still well down in the bottom.
Okay, perfect. But I mean, because a lot of times it's just Aubameyang or whoever's high pressing just running around and being a second too late. But I don't think that's.
Look at the changes that you mentioned, right? Mustafi, Guendouzi, and Iwobi. 2 out of those 3 players are very young. I think when you do a high press, you have to have mentally gifted football players on the pitch. And for Guendouzi and Iwobi, they may be a little bit young. Mustafi is just shit. So that's where the part of the reason why let's be honest, Rashford or Martial versus Mustafi, we lose 4-2.
I'll go back to you in a second, but I've forgotten. I have resisted the anti-Mustafi rhetoric all season long because I wanted to give everybody a year to either show themselves or not under him.
Yeah, he just hasn't improved.
I'm off of him.
Yeah, but I just think when you play that high energy, high press, you have to have the gifted players mentally out there. You have to have, they call it the football brain, right? Where when something happens on the pitch, you just naturally know how to adjust to it. And I think that credit to Ramsey and even Xhaka, they just know how to shift when that's happening. And so I was really impressed with it. We were very energetic for the first 20 minutes. We didn't allow Pogba to get time on the ball. They couldn't even get him the ball. That's how effective it was. I don't think you can sustain it for an entire season. But
you have to pick and choose your spots.
You totally do. You totally do. But I thought it worked. It worked amazing. I mean, it really was effective.
Gav, you pro or con Mustafi at this point? I have a feeling I know, but
I don't think he's as bad as a lot of people think he is. Prone to complete irrational stupidity at times. So if somebody come in and offered us 10, 15 million for him in the summer, I would be biting their hands off. But like I say, he's not terrible. But
unfortunately, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys out there who can be good on their day, but that's not what you can't have 3 or 4 of those guys in your back line though who can be.
No. I mean, like I say, to be fair, I don't really like Koscielny either, right? I mean, the Mr. Greek Papa Sakalakis, I love him to death. He's so much.
I think Gav just came on to me. I'm not sure.
He's so much what I love about central defenders. But Mustafi, the problem with Mustafi is he goes to ground too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If he stood up a little bit more, then he wouldn't get caught out as much. And to be fair to him, the other night he was playing at right back, which isn't his position, so you've got to give him a squeeze for that. But like I say, it wouldn't bother me if somebody come in with a bid for him for 10, 15 million, bite your hands off, move on. Do you know what I mean?
Speaking of going to ground a lot, you can't see this when you watch on television because it usually at the kickoff it just shows the central circle. But when you go to the game at the Emirates, when the game starts, Mustafi's actually lying down on his back. Like it's the way he prefers to start. It's bizarre. So anyone who's seen that, tweet us. Obligatory keeper question, Andy, on Xhaka's goal. I mean, David De Gea, who after yesterday is now back to being David De Gea. You don't get to beat David. The world's second best goalkeeper, supposedly, was wrong-footed by Xhaka's screwball. Now, I've seen it from a few different angles, and I've changed my opinion on this. Did Xhaka trick him with a ridiculously spun, intentional shot, or did De Gea just completely screw that up with his positioning?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Everybody's riding the fence today.
But there's a moment.
He's good and he's bad.
There's a moment in flight before the ball hits the back of the net, and I think every keeper's been there where you're like, "Fuck." I mean, you're literally like, "I am flat-footed, I am wrong-footed," and it's in the back of the net. And for as often as Xhaka takes those ridiculous shots, I think that he just got it spot on. Like the balls can do some crazy shit in the air. But I think it's partly a mistake and it's partly a beautiful shot.
Have you seen the overhead shot from above the goal?
No, I don't think so.
You got to watch that because you see how he struck his foot across the ball to add spin, and B, you see that it didn't just wrong foot after De Gea stopped, was already on his wrong foot, the ball continues to take this curving trajectory where it's clear that he was trying to spin it away from him. He wasn't just going for the far post. He was spinning it away from him. It looked
it was on his weaker foot too.
Yeah. He has a weaker foot.
When Xhaka's first hit it, right, it's going to De Gea's left. And it literally got to the penalty spot and the ball's just curved completely around the other way. He will never hit anything as good as that again in his life.
Yeah.
I mean, that was I don't think you can blame the keeper whatsoever because the ball was going to his left.
And
to the left, he's expected to curl further to the left, and it's done the reverse.
Yeah, Gav, you can't see this. I'm sorry, I'm awful with interrupting today. I've got to fucking give myself I was gonna say vasectomy, but I think I mean what's the fucking thing that lobotomy. Anyway, I was just gonna echo that because Dave Faber, our good friend Gooner Gav is in the chat, and he said John Lukic said De Gea was not at fault at all.
No.
That it was just from a goaltender's perspective. That was just
impossible. That's why he smiled. And Mike, I even thought about it at the time. Remember back in the FA Cup when Sanchez scored that goal and Given was just sitting on the ground and you could just tell the look on his face was, I literally could not do anything.
Yeah. That's
the look De Gea gave on that. It's just, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he was complaining about something, but in hindsight, that does, I think that makes a lot more sense. He was just like, look, sometimes you're just not going to
get beat.
Yeah, it's like almost a billiards trick shot or a snooker trick shot.
Yeah, no, I mean Neville on the like I said, I don't know if you heard the commentary in what feed you're listening to in America, but Neville come on Sky Sports afterwards and completely threw him under the bus. Completely threw De Gea, say it was a bad error and it was this, that, and the other.
He knows nothing about football.
Well, he certainly knows nothing about football management, does he? But no, it was like I say. I mean, I can't see anything but that was just an absolutely unbelievable. I mean, that was like the Roberto Carlos free kick of many years ago, where the ball was literally swung two ways in one movement. It was that good a strike. You don't, like I say, he won't hit anything like that again for a long, long time. I'm telling you. It was absolutely a superb shot.
Yeah, fantastic. And on the other hand, 20 minutes later, burned Leno shows what it's like to be the Ballon de goalkeeper with an outstanding stop on Lukaku. He's just sprawled out on the ground, not bringing him down, blocking a shot with his right hand. Andy, you've made that save like what, one or 200 times?
Oh yeah,
easily. But that was, and we'll have a question about this, but that was one of many Leno just masterpieces that we've seen in the last few games, but in this game especially. We got to talk about the penalty in a few different ways. At the pub when he blew for the spot kick, we were all celebrating, and then like at once we all flash back to last weekend, and we start doing the calm down thing. Like okay, we have to actually remember that getting the call isn't the same as actually getting a goal. So most of us miss the interaction between Lacazette and Aubameyang that we've now all seen and heard about. But Stu McFarlane, the team photographer, captured it perfectly in photos. Lacazette basically returned a favor from last season, and I asked Alba if he wanted to take it or told Alba to take it. And to his credit, he stepped up and said yes. So the first thing I want to talk about is, was it a penalty? It's kind of similar to last week's call. There was contact from behind, kind of soft contact, but as a defender, much like what you said with Socrates in the previous game, given the referee a decision to make, you've given him every reason to blow his whistle, right, Andy?
Yeah, and when a striker is going across body to get the goal, there's going to be all types of contact, and the referee is always going to be in favor of the attacking player there. And I think he had good position on watching the foul happen too. I think it's a very weak penalty, but I think it gets called 8 times out of 10.
Yeah, Gav, penalty or not penalty for you?
Oh, boy. It was Lacazette, mate. 100% penalty, mate. 100%. Lacazette don't go down. I mean, he does not go down.
That's true. You got to. You shouldn't, but you do kind of take the. I mean, Kane would have gone down 8 feet before this, without any contact. Before the contact actually happened.
I'd like to say, I don't think Lacazette was playing for the penalty. I mean, there was somebody in the middle as well, as I think I can remember. I don't think he was playing for it. I think the problem was he's got clipped on his left leg, and at the same time the defender has touched him in the back, and at that pace he went down.
Yeah,
like I say, but I mean, Lacazette, he's not that. You can say, oh, he's not that kind of player, right? And he doesn't look for the penalty. Perhaps he should look for them sort of penalties more. I wish he would look for them penalties more. But there's no way in the world that was anything but a stonewall penalty.
We have a great user question that's on that whole should he or shouldn't he do that. But you're absolutely right. That's not his MO. And if we're evaluating it after the fact, I think you do have to take that into account and say, I don't, there must have been some contact there, even if it's more than maybe what it looked like in real time. Secondly, and let's not talk about the kick yet. Completely honestly, Andy first. What was going through your mind and your stomach and your colon when you saw Abba standing there at the spot holding the ball for the second time?
I thought he was going to score it. As you had mentioned last week, his actual goal ratio on penalties is what, 80%?
It's like 24 out of 31 or something like that.
Yeah. So he's going to be I was confident. I was absolutely confident. It was a very poor penalty again.
We'll get there.
But I was confident he would score.
Gav, were you thinking this is the right thing to do, or holy shit? I mean, what was the?
Well,
game, by the way?
No. I mean, we had a family party that day, so I was indoors, and
I was going to ask what the collective, the fan feeling was in the Emirates.
No. I mean, I was halfway through my roast beef and Yorkshire puddings at that time. All right. No, I swear to God, I was.
Did it come back up when you saw him getting ready to take the penalty?
Well, no. See, what it reminded me of is there was a time, I think it was I'm not sure if it was the beginning of this season or the end of last season, when Lacazette was on a really bad run, and he'd come back from injury, and we had a penalty, and Uber went to him, yeah, you take the ball, you take the penalty. He scored and went on a run scoring goals.
And Alba was on a race in that game when he did that. This would have been his hat trick that he gave him.
Yeah. So I think he was really returning the favour. So I mean, that's like I say. I mean, I didn't really want to promote what I did today, but I brought out a little badge thing today of them shaking hands, and I put on it. I called it the friendship, trust, and class badge pin, because the pair of them have showed friendship. They've showed trust to each other to take the penalty, and they've both showed a bit of class because they both put the ball away. So the minute he gave the ball to him, I thought to myself, he's going to make amends, mate.
Well, I was a little less confident. I was nervous for him. I mean, I remember the ratio. I know that he, especially before he came here when he was with Dortmund, I think he was banging in penalties all the time to the point where people were saying, how many goals does he get from open play? But, just that confidence thing. And he hadn't shown a tremendous amount of confidence to that point in that game either yesterday. So to me, I was very nervous. I was like, this moment is going to make or break him for the rest of the season. From a confidence standpoint, from a absurd treatment supporters standpoint, just the things that unfortunately we don't control a whole lot. This is gonna be huge, or it's gonna be awful. And while I was so happy to see it go in the back of the net, and I'm not the one to focus on the negative, that penalty was twice as shit as the penalty the previous week. I mean, all De Gea had to do, and all from this point on, most keepers now have to do when Alba steps up to take a spot kick, is just stand still. I mean, that was one of the worst penalties I've ever seen that was actually on frame that didn't go into row Z. But hey, it counts. But I mean, anyone else? Sometimes rolling it down the middle can work if you just absolutely know that the keeper will never stand still. But when you've just done what you've done the previous week, aren't you thinking like get it up a little bit and bang it into the corner?
No, because if you're a keeper and you watch that penalty last week, you're thinking he's going to hit this with power and pace, and you're typically aiming low on those. So that's why De Gea probably went low.
So he did the double fake out.
My guess is that he was thinking he's going to go with power and placement. And so I truly think Aubameyang thought, I'm going to go down the middle and put a little less cheddar on it, Mike.
It's a massive gamble. I mean, there are people who can hit penalties to where it doesn't matter whether the keeper chooses the right direction or not. It can't be saved. But I suppose if you're not that good at it, when you try that, you take a good chance you're gonna miss the goal altogether. But I mean, if you're looking at basically 6 different options, low to left, low middle, low right, it's just so nerve-wracking to kick it like that and take your chance. But it doesn't matter.
I don't like low middle because the keeper can always
get his feet up. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the best penalty taker that I've ever seen is actually a West Ham player called Julian Dick.
Oh, okay.
Now, he just ran up and he fucking levered it. He levered it into the top corner every time. I mean, basically, if you get it within 3 foot of the top corner, no keeper's going to save it. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, that would be my preferred choice, is somebody who can constantly, even if they're kicking it in the same corner, the keeper's still not going to get anywhere near it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ideal, but I guess that is somewhat of a risk of...
I mean, yeah, I did see, I've listened to an interview with Valerian this morning, and he said, look, where he messed up against the Tottenham one was the split second before he kicked it, he looked down at the ball. And he said the difference was with the Man United one was that he didn't look down, he saw the keeper moving, and he knew where it had to be. Obviously, he chucked it further over to the left, but the fact that he had the mentality, he had the calmness, coolness to, basically run up, not look at the ball, wait until the keeper's gone. I mean, that's like that's not even a second decision. That's like a split half-second decision. So fair play to him. And to contradict you from what you said earlier slightly, sorry, sir.
It isn't a podcast if I'm not contradicted at least 5 times.
The only bad penalty is the penalty that's saved.
That's true.
If it goes in the back of the net, it's a good penalty, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's fair play. Fair play. And yeah, I forgot that I had read that about what Aubameyang says, and it brings me back to a question that I asked of you, Andy, like a few weeks ago. Does a really, really good penalty taker have the ability to actually choose his direction and pace and location and height when by seeing what the actual keeper does in advance. I mean, it's not a very long process of being able to do that, but can he actually do that, or is he just basically gambling and or going based off of past records of what the goaltender does? So
Mike, it's hard to
Aubameyang
say.
clearly seemed to have done that maybe because he knew.
Players pick the direction that they're going to go. They know where they're going to be placing the ball. They know as well as anyone else. Like they always say, well, hey, keepers study where players go to save the ball. Players also know which direction the keepers will go the most. It's just part of statisticians being like, hey, De Gea is all 90% of the time goes to his left because that's where he feels more comfortable. That's where he feels he can create, and cover more space. But yeah, I don't think you could at that moment see the goalie go and then change direction. I just don't think you could do it.
I think it seems to be what he's claiming, though.
I think if you could do it, that's when the ball goes over the post.
All right, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be that he was claiming that he, was doing that and that he missed last week because he forgot to do that or he didn't pull it off. But so it isn't that United didn't create any chances. I mean, they hit a few posts. They had some off-target shots. Fortunately, put the ball directly at Leno a few times. But, for the second game in a week against top 6 teams, our defense was positioned well. They had a plan. They didn't look out of sorts the way that they did against Stade on Thursday. So this goes back to a question that Kerry McCollum asked, and I'll get to that in a second. But the group, we tend to bust out in just an absolute shocker of a bed shitting every once in a while when you least expect it and you think we've got our stuff together. But then, all of a sudden you see what we saw yesterday. So when Unai Emery comes in to try to overhaul this team, to me, it was always going to be player mentality first. Use the season to flush out the people who don't have the mentality that he wants, and then kind of try to lock in and enforce a specific tactical style. And Kerry asked, after the Stade Rennes match on Thursday, I believe you had mentioned on Twitter, and this might have been in the heat of the moment, that Arsenal are just not mentally tough enough. And mental toughness are obviously one of the most important traits, regardless of the sport, Kerry says. So, were you just upset, or do you see progress in that regard? Because we have one off game and then one on game, it seems, with that, or am I just talking out my ass again?
I think you're talking out of your ass.
Okay, well then I'll turn around for the rest of the podcast. But no, I mean, to me, this season was always going to be about trying to get players who little bit not the most strong mentality the last few seasons and figure out who was going to really be the winners.
No, I agree with you there. I mean, you need to give each player at the club the opportunity to fit into the system. And I don't think tactically I think we're seeing more of a back three now. And I think he sees that being our best formation for the remainder of the season because we've been seeing it a lot. But Mike, how can you say, in the first half of the season that Ramsey wasn't worthy of a new contract? There's just so many things that play into it that I think it's more than just mentality versus tactics. I think there's a whole different, unless you're saying, hey, is mentality not only on the pitch but in training? Look at Dennis Suarez. We're starting to see like him slowly bleeding his way in. What did we need at the end of the match? Some fresh legs who knew how to high press. So we bring him on. We don't really have that elsewhere. Yeah. If we were looking for someone to sit deep and just defend, we would have probably brought on El Nini. But the tactic of, hey, let's high press for the remainder of this match worked. So that's why we made that substitution. I think this summer we're going to see a lot of players who are going to come in that have been tried and tested in the tactic that he wants to play, and then he'll morph that mentality. And if the tactic is high press, the mentality is already going to be there. So I think it's kind of one in part of the other,
That was outstanding, yeah. And hopefully it won't just be a Sevilla reunion of Sevilla level players, but I mean, certainly.
Well, apparently before he's even signed, MONCHI has already told him the 5 players that we will be signing this summer. So
Dybala, Ronaldo, Messi. Ibrahimovic 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And Kepa from Chelsea.
I heard he's going to be really cheap.
All right, so man of the match. Gav, we'll start with you. This game was almost one where you have to have like a man of the match and then like the runner-up man of the match. So who are you going with?
I know this is going to sound really, really fucking odd, but it was Leno for me.
Okay.
Leno, I mean, Leno made the saves that we've been dying for. I mean, the saves that he done at the Carco's feet. I mean, there's a couple that got a little bit past him, but I even think he had most of them covered as well. Yeah, I mean, like I say, a keeper that gets a clean sheet against Man United, to me, man of the match. Was he the most influential on the match? Probably not. That's probably Xhaka. Maitland-Niles had a cracking second half. Ramsey did his job. I mean, you can literally make a case for every single player. But literally just for the fact that a couple of crucial saves and having the gods on his side, for me, it's Leno.
It almost seems like every time we have one of these big wins this season, and there have been, fortunately, a lot of them, you can look at literally almost all but two people and call them man of the match. And when we've lost, there's usually one or two people that stand out as being like not the problem, and then the rest of them were just all shit. So, Andy, who's your 1 and 1A?
Maitland-Niles is my 1A. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. He hasn't played very much recently, and to have to come in and face any of their wingers that would have played with the speed, I thought he had some crucial interceptions. He made some beautiful runs forward, tracked back when he didn't need to in other positions. And then my 1A would be Mustafi for not seeing the pitch.
That has been discussed in the chat, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, you could. There's a good shout for.
Lewis White. There he is.
Lewis.
Yeah.
So I actually had written down, Gav, that you could easily have gone with Leno. You could definitely have gone with Mainsley.
Mike, who are you calling, Mike?
I'm going Xhaka for the man of the match. I mean, between the goal and I mean, if it was just the goal, it was fine. But some last hit, I mean, giving up his body in his own area with for once a well-timed challenge. Just his passing was sublime over the course of the game. He's the guy. Koscielny deserves a shout out as well. I mean, once again, a hell of a. I know it's not your favorite, Gav, but the guy had a gashed open leg that he pretty much just ignored because he was so determined to keep Mustafi out of the game. You gotta give him some props for that. But just a monster performance. A quick question from Jonas in the chat. Did Maitland-Niles do enough yesterday to hold that spot for the rest of the season, or are we going to continue to see kind of a triple platoon, if you will, there?
I think he did, Mike. And considering Thursday, we need a clean sheet. Like, that's our biggest problem, is that with Socrates out, who's going to fill that gap? It's got to be Mustafi. Yeah. So you're going to have to put him out on the right. And honestly, where in the season has the kid taken a step wrong where you're thinking he's a liability? I don't think he has. I mean, he got pushed out of the team for Bellerin, who obviously was having an absolute great season until he got injured. But at what point do you look at it and go, oh, man, he wasn't very good in that match. We should bench him?
I feel like early on in his days where they were going to him to replace Bellerin after the injury, he had a couple games where he was starting to be exposed a little bit. But, obviously the solution for that wasn't Lichtensteiner. And I've gotten to call him that now just because I'm intentionally saying it wrong.
I just think with the since we're kind of going into general talking points, I think we have 8 matches remaining and all 8 are winnable when you look at who we're playing. Yeah. I think we said last week, when you look at Wolves and Everton away, those are the 2 where I think, okay, those are the areas where we maybe slip up. Outside of that, we're not facing any team, Mike, that should give us, if we play like we did against Man United, we're maximizing points there. We're not going to play like that every week, granted. I think that we are on track to do it. We can easily grab that 3rd place if we, and I think that we've got
to win 6 out of the 8 left. we've got to win 6. So,
Absolutely, and I think it's possible.
I
And I
do
think
as well.
Yeah,
I do.
and I don't think there's anyone that troubles Mainsley in that position on any of those squads. Maybe a Vardy when we have to play Leicester, but outside of that, I see him having a comfortable end to the season.
The thing is, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, he's not a right back.
No.
Yeah, he didn't play right back for the youths. He didn't play right back for the under-18s. He didn't play right back for the under-23s. He's not a right back. The thing is what he is. He's a damn good footballer.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, unfortunately, he's almost been like, look, you are a central midfielder, which is what he is. But literally, he's just been told, look, you're going to have to learn this one because this is the space we've got. This is the problem we've got. And you're the best to fill this in. So, like I say, I mean, if Bellerin was fully fit, Maitland-Niles ain't getting in the team. He's not getting close to it. But the thing is, he's becoming versatile, which is a good thing for his learning curve, but it's a bad thing for his education. So it really is a double-edged sword with him at the moment. But the thing is what I love about Maitland-Niles is he's not complained. He's coming in, he's taking his chances, he's playing for the shirt, and I don't think you can ask anything more about him. In fact, like I said earlier, when we talked about man of the match,
he is a work rate machine.
He had a great second half. Yeah, he's got a tremendous machine. Yeah. But like I say, it's not. Do I think he's going to be playing right back in 5 years' time for us or somebody else? No.
Well, I don't think he'd be happy doing that either. I think he'd probably eventually ask for ask to be moved on to some place where he could get that done reluctantly.
He's like I say, he's not a right back. He's filling in, and he's a young kid, and he's a local boy. He's a London boy. He's been at the club since he was probably about 8 or 9 years old. So it's players like that really that are fitting into positions where he doesn't, isn't his natural position. He's learning a position that, he's never really played in his life. And he's a local boy. He's the kind of player that we really should be giving, to quote you earlier, Mike, all the props in the world over.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's a diamond, an absolute diamond.
And there's enough matches in there, Mike, where we could even give him a little bit of a rest and throw Jenko in.
Yeah, I mean, especially if we do progress in the Europa League. Then we still have multiple 2-game weeks. He kind of reminds me of like a David Court from the '60s, where he just plays every position on the pitch. I'm acting like I came to that conclusion myself. That's from Gooner.
Goonerholic, yeah.
Yeah, like I would come up with that.
I think, Mike, we're in for an interesting run, and at the end of the season, and Danny had posted a tweet about there he is, about where we have been comparative to the last 3 seasons against the top 6. And how much of a progression we've made under Unai. And I think, Mike, that we're heading into the last 8 fixtures with a manager who will have this team ready to go. I don't think we will see much. We've seen Jekyll and Hyde performances. I'm almost, and I might get slain for saying this, if we don't progress on Thursday, I'm not going to see it as the end of the world, because it allows us to get rest in between these matches. But at the end of the day, we have a manager who I think is going to be very, very ready in securing this team to see out these last 8 matches and get as many points as possible. Where, again, I'm not bashing, but I don't think we had that last season.
No, and between that and I think Mainsley will play whatever position next year MONCHI tells him to play it. That's how much I trust MONCHI. He's going to turn all of this around, and I can talk about him.
Mike. You kind of look like him a little bit.
You're saying that because I have the munchies. That's munchies and MONCHI, 2 different things. I had put in my notes I wanted to talk about pitch invasions, but we also only have about 10 or 15 minutes left, and I want to get to user questions. So let's do user questions, and if we have time to talk about it, we'll talk about it. Otherwise, we can do it next week. User questions. Also, thanks for coming into the chat. The aforementioned Mr. Faber, Gooner Holic, Matthew Belcher, Archie's here. Lewis has joined
Becca.
in.
She's no longer in the chat.
Becca listened to 5 minutes of us and then got completely disgusted and left, as per normal.
Yeah, typical woman.
We've just lost our whole market. From Fredo, which Leno save did you love the most? And I'll tell you, I'll start with mine because the answer is the one that I've already talked about, where he was basically crawling along the ground like a slithering snake, just with the perfect touch on the ball. But there was also a shot that ripped across him where he dove to the left and it hit the post. And I swear he got a fingertip on it to put it onto the post.
I know what you're talking about.
It was not easily discernible whether he did or not, but if he did, that's my favorite save. Gav,
I'm gonna go with there was a moment.
I've lost control of this.
I'm
going to Gav and you're picking up.
There's a moment in the match where he has to come off of his line outside of the 18 and clear the ball. I think the United player had burned our defenders, and just having the awareness to get to that quickly. So I'm going to give him that one since we've already talked about the other ones.
Gav, what do you think?
I'm with you, mate. I'm where he basically slithered along the floor and sorted out Lukaku. I mean, it would have been so easy for him to have taken Lukaku down there.
Yeah.
And again, penalty, yellow card, bang, bang, bang. Do you know what I mean? But, I mean, as I said, Leno, mate, I absolutely love him, mate. I'm loving him. I'm loving the fact that we've got a decent keeper for the first time since the mad German.
He's outstanding.
I mean, like I said, the gulf between him and Czech is unbelievable.
And I think Czech recognizes that now too. I mean, I don't think it's like, I mean, I think he's happy to be in his position because ultimately he supports what's best for Arsenal. I'm talking about Petr Cech, and I think he realizes that Leno is in another class right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, Czech is. I don't really want to slag him off too much.
No, that's not to say anything bad about Czech. It's just.
But I mean, Czech was past his prime when we signed him. Mm. He was past his prime, but he's been an absolute gentleman on the pitch and off the pitch, and I think he's been an absolute gentleman at the moment with Leno. You can see that Leno's improved by training with somebody who is as classy as what Czech has been. But where Czech he's a second too slow now, and the second in goalkeeping terms is mild. So, like I say, as much as I appreciate and I respect Czech and the stuff he does off the pitch as well for the Arsenal Foundation,
absolutely, yeah.
And for the local kids, you know, you cannot not respect. And even the fact, like I say, I don't know whether I respect him for the fact that he took out, 15 birds from the Arsenal ladies team, or respect him for the fact that he took out 15 birds from the Arsenal ladies team.
Yeah, that was a really big struggle for him, I'm sure.
Yeah, but like I say, I mean, he's an absolute gentleman, but he's well, he's 3, 4, 5 years past his prime. But like I say, I mean, Leno is what we've been missing, mate. We've been missing somebody like Leno. We've been missing somebody that the defenders can be assured about.
He's grown into this squad too. I mean, like it wasn't that obvious in the first 3 or 4 months of the season to me, but now he's grown into it. And I mean, the last month, I don't know if there's an FA goaltender of the goalkeeper of the month award or not.
Yeah.
But if there is for February and early March, he's won it. Dave,
question for you, Mike, because you've been asking all the questions.
Yeah.
Do you think the way that Emery introduced Leno into the first team, do you think that that's done Leno favours? Because Emery sort of, he had him in, he had him out. He was playing the cup games and the Europa games. and then he slowly started doing the Premier games, and there was a swap around sort of November, December time. Do you think Emery played a blinder with Leno?
Ultimately, it tipped when I think in the game against Watford when Cech got hurt and Leno came in, and from that point he didn't look back. I can't really assign too much positive or negative energy to how Emery handled it, because when you sign a younger, larger money signing, I mean, certainly he's looking like a steal right now at 20 or 22 million, but
probably still on half the wages of what Cech's on.
Yeah, I mean, but when you bring in a guy like that, it wasn't clear that he was being brought in to be this season's number one. It was clear that he was brought in to be our future number one. And so to start the season with Cech didn't surprise or concern me. To gradually work him in didn't surprise or concern me. You want him to kind of get in there and force your hand. And starting with that game in against Watford, I think he really started to do that. So, I don't know that any credit goes to or is taken from Emery for that. I give all the credit to Leno for making the decision easier at this point.
Yeah, you think it was as much Leno taking his chance as Emery sort of phasing him in? Then you think it's like a 50-50 call?
Yeah, no, I think I'm not going to fence it on this one. I'm going to say Leno just basically decided at some point he was ready to take the job, and he made it impossible for anybody to tell him otherwise.
I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
Beautiful. From Mike Hernandez, who is at AFC Circa 86. If you want to find him on Twitter. And this is the question I was referring to earlier. Would you rather the players of the team you support, which of course is the Arsenal, dive and try to trick the ref and get the occasional penalties, or stay on their feet? In other words, would you rather the end result, or does it matter to you how we get there, Andy?
I think
you're a guy who's got some
I would think stay on your feet.
Principles.
Yeah, stay on your feet, because at the end of the day, when you talk about, let's say, Harry Kane, right? You can easily just be like, well, let's go to Dele Alli. He's a diving cheat. I mean, it's just easy to say that, and there's nothing you can argue against if you're a Tottenham supporter, because he is a diving cheat and everyone knows it. So I'd rather they just stay on their feet, and then you like Lacazette, as Gav said earlier, the guy doesn't go down. So you can't fault him for that. He's a great goal scorer who doesn't go down. There's a respect. I was watching you in DC United, Mike, where you're a super fandom of Wayne Rooney this weekend. He could have went down. And he didn't.
Actually, that game was not televised. That game was not televised locally for free, so I didn't end up watching it at all.
But Rooney goes down, just jumps back up to his feet. He could have easily embellished that more. And I thought, man, a younger Rooney who actually cared for his team would have really embellished that. So
he did against us, mate. The 50th game.
Yeah,
50th game he died.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Gav, is integrity important to you, or are you all about the results?
No, I'm 100% behind the fact that I want my strikers to stay on their feet and to try and score. And when they do go down, they go down honestly. But at the same respect, there's something with regards to the refs. Look, if somebody clearly kicks somebody who tries to stay on their feet, gets a shot off, which is saved or goes wide, then the ref should pull it back.
Yeah.
So, like I say, hopefully, VAR, the holy fucking growl of complete fuck-ups that's going to cause.
Would you put VAR on a pizza? Would you?
Jesus. I'll tell you what, the only thing that VAR is going to do is fuck Tottenham.
Let's hope.
Tottenham must be absolutely shitting themselves.
Then I'll fund it myself.
Do you know what I mean? That's the only. That's the team that's going to suffer the most of that is them. Right, because they are complete diving, fucking cheating bastards, right? But like I say, I want to see our players stand up, and when they do go down and go down honestly, I want us to get the call.
And frankly, you brought up a great point, which is if we're fouled and our players and our attackers don't go down, it still could be a penalty, I mean, like you're allowed to call the penalty if our guy is impeded, but chooses not to flop onto the ground like a fucking fish. And that's unfortunately that's on the whatever it is, the Referees Association, the PRAF or whatever the fuck it is.
PEODO, PEDO.
PMOG, MLL, PIZZA. I mean, it just they've got to fix that because at this point they have taught our players that you have to go down to get a penalty, otherwise you're not going to get one that isn't a handball, and so that's got to be fixed. And then teams with integrity can be rewarded for their integrity instead of suffer for it.
Yeah, I mean, if like I say, that was the thing. If a player is like hot, in the midfield, and he gets fouled, and the ball ends up going to one of our players, and he passes it forwards, and it breaks down, the ref pulls it back to the original foul.
Yeah.
Why can't that be the same for inside the box as it is for outside the box? That's all I'm saying. I mean, it seems ridiculous, really, but I mean, like I say, I mean, diving. I mean, it was started by Klinsmann at fucking Tottenham anyway. Let's go back to it. The diving was started by them dirty bastards in Middlesex.
Yeah.
Right. And like I say, they've just carried it on. So, like I say, the more VAR comes in, and the more players learn that they've got to stay at their feet and not try and buy a penalty. That's the other thing that winds me up. Kane tried that against us, where they don't run normally and naturally. They push one of their legs out to the side in the hope that they're going to get a clip.
Yeah, who does that? Like, who does that in normal course of activity? It's ridiculous.
Unless you're from Middlesex, no one might. No one.
And I am not from Middlesex. I'm middle-aged and I don't have sex, but I'm not from Middlesex. All right. Anyway, we got two more questions. I want to try to rush through these because you've been kind enough to spend almost an hour and a half with us now. For Gav, I have to ask this one. This is just for you, Gav, from some guy named Danny the G something. Looks a lot like this guy. If Gav had to bathe, then towel dry and talk, although I think he meant talc, their body like a baby, any member of ABW, past or present, as there's been hundreds of the fuckers. This is all, I'm quoting this. Who would it be and why?
Would I like to talc me dry after I've had a fucking bath?
No, if you had to bathe and towel dry and talc them, who would it be? I'm going with Jason Davies, but the question was for you.
No. I love the Welsh boyo, but like I say, he's Welsh, so I'll be worried just in case he confused any sort of cotton wool bugs with sheep. The only thing I can say this, and this is obviously with due respect to my good lady partner, is any female that's ever been on there.
So you're thinking in terms of like an Amanda or what's Gim's girls, the Kate.
Any female that's ever been on there above any of the blokes.
All right, so
although one thing, Danny is the most I would like to cuddle, because
but out of the bath,
not in the bathroom, and certainly not naked.
All right,
but I would certainly give him the biggest man hug.
So you are here basically to say then that you would like to bathe, towel dry, and talc Amanda. Then that's what you're here to say. Okay.
No.
I'm kidding.
No, don't do that.
From David Ziegler, from the Pineapple Boy himself, and one word answer to this.
Look him up.
One word answer. On what Premier League team would you wish Mustafi? Andy.
City.
Okay. And Gav.
I don't hate him that much.
Well then don't send him to Tottenham. But I mean, give him.
I wouldn't wish that. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I would say he's probably a very fit for something like Burnley.
Okay, that works. I would send him back to Everton to see if he can do better the second time.
I like them. They hate Liverpool.
All right, cool. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the questions. We do not have enough time to talk about the pitch invasions, but let me just say,
Let's talk about that.
Andy.
I gotta go.
Yeah, it's Andy's limit, unfortunately. But
you guys can keep going. I'll just drop off.
All right. Yeah, maybe we'll do that actually. So let's do the regular end though, or not. Andy, you want to go?
Well, yeah, and I'll just drop in a few minutes.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. We saw 2 pitch invasions on Sunday. One, the ridiculous.
I want to talk about the Grealish one.
The Grealish one. Yeah, Andy. As long as you're here, let me go to you first. I mean, holy shit! Amazing composure from the guy, just not to go absolutely fucking ape shit. 5 seconds after it happens, he's like slapping the backs of some of the Birmingham players and accepting their condolences or whatever you want to call it. Had a lot of debates on how to stop this. Before I go into mine, what do you think of it and what do you do?
Well, there's nothing you really can do to stop it because you never know when an idiot is going to run on the pitch. I mean, you see it like absolute polar opposites. What happened with Aubameyang and then what happens here. The only thing you can do is I see he got a 14-week sentence in prison for going on. Is you got to just get down hard on these idiots so they don't do it again. But credit to Grealish because everything you hear about this kid is he's a hothead who could have been at the top of the game and now he's stuck in the lower division. And I recently on the Football Ramble, they were talking about how he is one of those managers' dreams because he's just 100% go in training and what have you. But to see him not jump up and attack the guy and just let it kind of play out, you got to
and then score the winner. I mean,
yeah, a better way to say "fuck you," right, to those Birmingham fans. But I feel bad for him, I really do. But well played on him, and then even the guys in blue to run over and take care of it for him because you kind of see that unity when it comes to players on the pitch. I mean, that was just atrocious.
I mean, that's one of the top 3, 4, or 5 derbies in England. Maybe, and the inter-team hatred between the two of them just went away in 1 second because there's 22 people on that pitch and they all have something in common, and that's the need to be safe.
Yeah. But 14-week sentence, and I'm sure he's going to get a massive fine, and now he's going to have a ban from probably all football stadiums. So I think that's the best for him. And I'll sign off with that, Mikey. Love ya. Thanks.
Love you too. Happy birthday yesterday.
Happy early birthday to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I can't forward you the pineapple stuff to get there by tomorrow, but
that's okay. I'll have one. I'll go to the store tonight and get one for myself.
All right, boys.
All right.
Thanks everyone in the chat. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers,
Take care, mate. Speak to you soon.
All right, Gav. I gotta